Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by William Mezzullo. William is the head of hydrogen at Centrica, the major gas player in the UK, and has a very strong background actually in the area of hydrogen with research in biogas, many years in the front end of trying to build biogas projects or building biogas projects, and then working in financing for Foresight, one of the big major players in equity, private equity investments in renewables, and is now obviously at Centrica leading their hydrogen program. So you're going to be speaking at the World Hydrogen Week in Copenhagen, or at least I think one of your colleagues is. So it's great to catch up with you, Will, and learn about Centrica. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, pleasure, and great to be here, and look forward to the event. Yeah, thank you.
And I mean, your background and working on biogas and therefore, green gases and now hydrogen. What are some of your big picture thoughts around hydrogen and its place in the energy system?
To me, it's part of the puzzle to how do you decarbonize gas. I think the focus has been so much around decarbonizing the electron. We haven't really cracked how do you decarbonize the molecule, and that could be in gas form or in liquid form. And hydrogen's has to play a really important role there. Um, I have a lot of sympathy for this because of my start in biogas. It's like, well, actually, biogas has an important role in decarbonizing the gas grid and decarbonizing the methane molecule. And biogas will have an important role to play, but its limitation is its feedstock availability. But actually, hydrogen has a different role. It balances the electricity network. It can create you can store terawatt hours of hydrogen in disused salt caverns for long duration energy storage. It can be moved around in the form of ammonia and decarbonize the fertilizer sector. So it has a number of different uses. So it's not like when you decarbonize the gas system, I think you need all of them. You need biomethane, you need carbon capture as well. So actually, sometimes it makes much more sense to actually just directly capture the CO2 at the back end of a power plant or something. And sometimes it makes much more sense to make hydrogen. And I think they need to be thought collectively. With that note, then when you're thinking about how do you roll out hydrogen successfully, that whole system approach is needed. So this sort of idea of like, let's have a few projects and then see how it goes, that worked for renewables because the infrastructure was already there. With hydrogen, we need to create that infrastructure. So pipes, storage, hydrogen users, etc. So it's slightly different. So that whole system approach is really important.
And that's what you're doing with the Humber project in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. So it's kind of a mini version of what a national scale whole system approach of hydrogen would look like. So there with our partners, Equinor and SSE, we've got a regional version of hydrogen production, hydrogen transportation through pipelines, and hydrogen storage, and then various hydrogen users. And those hydrogen users vary from industrial off-takers to ones that need more dispatchable hydrogen. So, and you can't have a user that has an intermittent use of hydrogen without an element of storage. So that's yeah, it's a project that we're hoping to apply for government mechanisms later this year in the UK around sort of building pipelines and storage and hydrogen production, really to start showcasing that whole system. And we hope that that will start becoming a bit of a nucleus of what it could look at a larger scale. And actually, if you had a number of these across the country, start connecting them with bigger infrastructure, then you start rolling out that whole system, national hydrogen infrastructure that's needed, really.
And the storage element, I assume is, you mentioned salt caverns, is that right?
Yeah,
And
that's right. It's the storage facility in question is Aldborough Storage Facility, which is a disused storage facility, and it's a salt cavern, an existing salt cavern, and for the quantities of hydrogen that you need that is being produced at the start, it's the right thing for it. You know, we will need different scales of hydrogen storage as the hydrogen industry grows, and so it's at the beginning, it's going to be more challenging than later on. It's much easier to bolt things on than at the beginning when you're actually creating an initial setup. So yeah, it's a disused salt caverns facility.
Yeah. And I mean, do you know the scale of it? So you mentioned scale a couple of times.
Yeah, I should really know the number. I think it's in the hundreds of gigawatt hours, which is a sizable amount of storage. If you think sort of battery storage is into the single digit gigawatt hours or into the several megawatt hours and tens of megawatt hours, this is in the hundreds of gigawatt hours.
Yeah.
Um, and just to put that in perspective, we own the Rough storage facility, which is we believe Europe's largest natural gas storage facility. If that get, we are working towards converting that to hydrogen one day. At the moment, it's heavily utilized to be a bit of national important infrastructure balancing the gas network. But that one can store something like 12 terawatt hours, so 12,000 gigawatt hours. So they are factors of a scale difference. But for this particular project, yeah, a salt cavern is the perfect size.
Yeah. And on the production side, is Centrica looking at that side as well?
That's right. So at that particular project that we're working with Equinor and SSE, we would look to house the hydrogen production facility. So it's 100 megawatt green hydrogen production, but with the aspiration and plans to become much larger. Yeah, so hydrogen production, green hydrogen production, and then over time, then we can see how blue hydrogen production would be connected in through Equinor's plans with the Humber blue hydrogen.
Yeah. And in terms of I mean, the next sort of key challenge in the development phase is around the permitting, the financing, just bringing the systems integration together, all the different technologies, or all of the above, and how long is your expectations around the sort of the development of this project, given its sort of complexity?
Yeah, sure. It is a little bit of all of the above. But I think with everything in hydrogen, there's no shortage of money from investors. I mean, even from ourselves, the finances are there to invest in these kind of infrastructure projects. And even if we didn't, there will be lots of infrastructure funds with huge appetite. But what we can see, and this is a theme across all hydrogen projects, is the risks are too great at the moment around hydrogen projects, and whether those are storage, whether those are transport, whether those are production. So this is where governments have such an important role to play, is how do you de-risk that investment? So the money is there, the investors have got the appetite, but the risk reward is imbalanced. It is not too dissimilar to what renewables were like right at the beginning. And so government intervention, whether they are through regulatory support mechanisms, other ways of de-risking, reliefs, etc., are needed. So it's working on all of the above and just making sure that they all aligned, because what you don't want to do is spend huge amount of money on development capital and so forth, getting permissions, if you realize that actually the government is further behind in terms of sort of putting the mechanisms in place. In the UK, we're quite lucky. Government has announced transport business models. So these are support mechanisms for pipelines, and storage business models. These are support mechanisms for storage. Critical bits of sort of regulatory mechanisms that support that will underpin de-risking of those investments.
Yeah. And actually building the system. So it's not just obviously the subsidies around the production part, but as you mentioned, the storage and transport. And I guess around risk is cost clearly. And is there sort of new realism around the actual cost of hydrogen?
It's a funny one because I guess when we look at the UK projects, the UK government sometimes has been pointed out, especially over in Europe, around the high levels of subsidies. And in the wrong hands, that could be misguided or misinterpreted. Is really the cost of any new technology is going to be much greater at the beginning than it is over time. And that renewables and all sorts of renewables, renewable gas and renewable electricity is a testament to that. I think it's there's no new realization. I think the cost of making the low carbon hydrogen has always been a challenge. I think some countries and some governments have understood that at a more rapid pace than others, have been more realistic, have had a closer relationship with industry, or maybe all of the above. And so I think from a UK context, we're in a sensible place. I think is always a battle between sort of de-risking for investors and industry and value for money for government. So I think there's something there around, some of the projects that are not going forward in Europe, for example, around learning. Let's be as an industry or transparent and collaborative with our governments, particularly if we're asking them to underpin these investments. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, some great thoughts there, great advice as well, and it's been great to talk to you, William, and thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts today. And we look forward to you, or indeed your colleagues' participation in World Hydrogen Week, which is fast approaching us at the end of the month, 30th September to the 2nd, 3rd of October in Copenhagen. So many thanks, William. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.